I was contemplating on whether or not I was going to do this story because of how goofy it is, but I said, you know what the hell? Let me put it out there because I'm sure some of my subscribers are probably wondering if I was going to talk about it or not. And if you weren't wondering, well, here's the story right here. So this story is coming out of a very tiny town in Minnesota. Now, y'all have been following me for a while and know that since the beginning of this year, I've been doing a Sundown series where I talk about various towns around the U.S. to cover a lot of ground so far and still have a lot of ground to cover. And I won't be surprised that by the time I get to the state of Minnesota, if Minnesota is on my list, that this town comes up. I'll be surprised if it doesn't. But you have this small town where they have this church right here. And this is the picture of the church. It's called the Asad True Folk Assembly in Murdock. I'm guessing Murdock is the name of the town. And they basically got a permit approved to make their church whites only. But the goofy part about the thing is they insist that they're not racist. Many will beg to differ that it is. Now, don't get me wrong. They can have their little enclave. They can have their little church or whatever they want to call it. Their little gathering place. They can have it. I can't remember the last time I've been in a church, to be quite honest. No matter whose church it belongs to, but let's be real here. The churches I've ever been to in my life have been predominantly mainly black churches or predominantly black surrounding churches. And this is put it that way. But I highly doubt that my church put a sign on the door said blacks only or colored people only allowed in here. But they got a permit approved to say that they can actually put the sign on the door or to say that only white people can come here and attend this congregation. Hey, fine by me. I really don't give a damn. The goofy part is just the fact that I'm saying that they're not racist. Because when they say like, oh, it's whites only, it literally takes you back to the civil rights era and Jim Crow when you actually saw those signs where it says whites only and colored people on the other side. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article that's coming from WFLA. It says, when the church doors open, only white people will be allowed inside. And I'm actually looking at like video footage of this town, and it is a very, very tiny town where it looks like everybody knows everybody. That's the message for the Asad True Folk Assembly in Murdock, Minnesota. Is sitting after being granted a conditional use permit to open a church there and practice its pre-Christian religion that originated in Northern Europe. Well, at least they're going back to their roots. I guess you can say that's one little small thing that came out of it. They're going back to the beginning of their time. But, you know, wouldn't that involve them actually being in, say, a cave type setting? The vote came after Murdock's city attorney advised town officials that rejecting the Asad True Folk Assembly's request could violate its religious rights. The AFA does not accept black, indigenous, and people of color into its congregation. So you have to be that pure, Aryan, blonde-haired, blue-eyed individual, is what they're saying. Council members who were meeting online because of the virus pandemic kept video cameras turned off and refused to identify who voted for or against the permit. Mayor Craig Kavanaugh said the vote was 3-1 to approve the conditional use permit as long as the group meets the conditions set on the permit. There has been a lot of concern on this topic in the city of Murdock, and rightfully so. We just want to be clear that we are not discussing race with our decision. This is strictly a zoning issue. Wait, huh? Then wait a minute. How is it just a zoning issue if you clearly just stated that it's whites only? At that point, it is now a race issue. But see, this is Palm Colored doing what Palm Colored always been doing, and that's rewriting every damn thing as they go along. They're probably like, oh, this isn't racist. This is a zoning issue, so it's a zoning issue. Now, you know what else was a zoning thing? Redlining, and that too was racist. And I wouldn't be surprised if they still, well, this is actually practicing redlining if he wants to call it a zoning thing, if you want to be technical. We, as the leaders of the city of Murdoch, wanted to be known that the city of Murdoch condemns racism in all of its forms, conscious, unconscious, any place, anytime, now, and in the future. We are committed to building a community that promotes equal justice and opportunity to every single person, regardless of their race. I need to know what the demographics of this place is, because what you're about to find out is the population of this town. It says opponents have collected about 50,000 signatures on an online petition to stop the all-white church from making its home in the farming town of a whopping 280 people. What have I told y'all about them small towns? 9 times out of 10, I would not be surprised if this Murdoch location in Minnesota was once a sundown town, and probably still is. 280 people, and they're most likely all Caucasian. I think they thought they could fly under the radar in a small town like this, but we'd like to keep the pressure on them, said Peter Kennedy, a longtime resident of Murdoch. Racism is not welcome here. Well, see, that just shows you the type of element there, because the citizens there did not go and approve this permit. It got approved from higher ups who, signed and, okayed for them to make this church whites only. And it showed you what kind of lessons, quote unquote, they would be teaching. I wouldn't be caught dead near this church. And the thing is, who's rushing? Like, listen to that information. And I'm talking to my subscribers right here. Y'all can answer down in the comments. After hearing what I just read to you, would you of conscious sound mind rush to go to this church for any reason? I wouldn't go to this church for anything. I wouldn't even drive by this church. Honestly, they can have it. They can keep whatever it is that they're practicing in there. But all I'm saying is this: when black people are doing their own thing, we should not be interrupted. See how they were able to vote for a permit for this whites only enclave? When black people want and demand something or have something and they're doing it, we should not be interrupted, left to our own devices. And should anyone try to step foot and try to kick some shit off, kick up dust, bring them back to this story right here. It's funny they said that racism is not allowed here, but apparently it is, because they got approved to have this be a whites only gathering place where they're going to do and practice pre-Christian religion. So I don't know what the religion is. I really don't care. At least they're going back to their roots, which is more than I can say for many of them today. But that also lets you know what type of people and of what era a lot of the individuals here are, because I may be jumping the gun, but I highly doubt that there's anybody there under a certain age. I highly doubt anybody who's going to this church is in close proximity age with me. They're probably all 50 and above, 45 at best. But I don't think it's anybody in the early 30s age range, definitely not the 20s, and for damn sure not the teenage years, unless they got dragged to this church, if you want to call it that, to this building by a loved one. And then you got to think about all the signatures they got. 280 people live in this town, and they got 50,000 signatures. That's crazy. I take that back. They got 50,000 signatures to stop it from being an all-white church, and even that didn't help. So, like I said, it's people in the higher ups that approved this, even beyond the petition, that the people who didn't want this to happen, they're the ones at the end of the day that had the final say. So that means their petition didn't do shit. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. This goofiness down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. Have the bell click. Have the notifications on all. And I will talk to you in the next one.